Hello, and welcome to Muse to the Pharaoh, a Prince podcast from a woman's perspective. I'm your host, darlingnisi. First, I want to introduce what this podcast is about. I'm a contributor to the Prince podcast, and we're talking about expanding out to offer different perspectives on Prince. And we noticed there weren't a ton of Purple podcasts that were from a female perspective, and also not really one that was staffed by a younger age group. So this is an experiment in hitting both of those targets. For me, I'm really passionate about exposing some of the topics or music that doesn't often get talked about, like his 90s and later work, or some lessons I perceive between the notes and the music. If you see some of the things I post on Tumblr, I have his Lessons from the Professor series where I talk about some of the lyrics or write short reflections on what they mean to me. More kind of not self-help, but noting that while the music's good, what he's actually saying is just as impactful. So this podcast is going to be digging deeper into his music and talking about how people respond to it or feel seen by it or learn by it, while also helping to get people to reconsider some of his projects that may not have resonated with him for some time. So when we're done, everybody's going to love Tony M.
Wait, everybody doesn't already love Tony M?
You know. So today we're going to talk about our first topic is going to be how people's lives have changed since Prince ducked out. Joining me today is what I call my roundtable of Tumblr friends. We all got together shortly after Prince transitioned to share like bootlegs and news and thoughts about Prince. And we've been going strong for like 2 years now. So if you guys could just introduce yourself, share your age, and how you discovered Prince. And we'll start with Crystal.
Okay, so my name is Crystal. I'm 25 years old. I first got into Prince when I was about 13, but I had heard him my whole life through my mother because my mother was a huge Prince fan. In 2006, for her birthday, I got her the 3121 album, and she just invited me to listen to it, and it was history from there. So yeah, that's pretty much how I got into Prince.
Cool. Fisayo?
I'm also 25 years old. Discovered Prince. I kind of came onto him on my own, probably around like high school. And it wasn't really a big thing. My parents are from Nigeria, so I had no real like cultural inheritance from them. Everything I found out was on my own. I think I probably got either Purple Rain or 1999 just from the library and was just like blown away. Yeah, that's my origin.
Cool. Stephanie?
Hi, guys. I'm Stephanie, 28. And like Crystal, I was indoctrinated into Prince through my mom. She was a huge Prince fan. And I always say that Prince is one of my earliest music memories. Sign of the Times in particular, that was one of my mom's favorite albums. And so just growing up listening to him, it got even more intense post-transition, but he's always been a top musical influence for me, for sure.
Nice. And Erica?
Hi, I'm Erica. I'm 34, and Purple Rain came out the year that I was born, and my mom was obsessed with it. So I grew up listening to Prince my whole life. We had, my mom, we didn't watch a lot of TV, so my mom would put on music and we'd dance around the living room. And like the hits and the B-sides was one of our favorites that we'd put on. So he was always kind of there growing up. And then when I was in college, I was downloading music illegally, which Prince would super not approve of. And my roommate at the time was like a huge Prince fan. And so I was downloading like Sexy MF and all these songs that were like new to me. And I stumbled across Pussy Control. And I lived and died by that thing for years. It was like, this is my favorite song, whatever. So anyway, it was then that I really was like, oh, this guy has way more music than the hits, and started to get super into it. And then after he passed, I really went off the deep end, watching whatever I could and listening to whatever I could, reading every single article, and a sane person might. So that's where I'm coming from.
Cool. And I guess I'll go. So Kanisa, Darlingnisi, 33 years old. First memory of Prince was probably Adore, just hearing him on the R&B radio stations. But the one that resonates with me the most was being at a Baylor University football game, and their local pop station was playing their tunes or whatever. And there's this one song that came on, and it sounded like country, and I was like, that sounds weird. Are they branching out? And it turns out it was Cream, which obviously isn't country, but I was like, oh, okay. So a lot of the 90s for me, I resonate with that time and later because he was around a lot. He was on, especially for the Black Talk shows, he was on Vibe a lot, Soul Train, just different shows like that. He was on Tavis Smiley shows, like on BT. So he's kind of always around. And then when he came out with the Most Beautiful Girl video, I was really into gymnastics at the time, around 96, and was on the tumble team at school. And Dominique Dawes was in that video. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. But for the 90s, it was more based on, hey, this song sounds cool. And then I didn't really identify with what he was saying until like college, because you start to date and things like that. And I remember Musicology came out, and me and my friend at college were like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Why is no one talking about this? And everyone's like, Prince is old. I'm like, what? And then 3121, maybe I wrote some stories around a couple songs in that album. I'm not going to talk about that. But it's kind of like, as I got older, I got more mature, and I was able to understand what he was talking about in his music, past the actual funkiness and niceness of the music. And that's when I think I entered him in my harem or whatever with, Michael and Quincy Jones and everybody in like 07 or so, and started writing about it on my blog, and it just became a thing. So those are our origin stories for Prince. And so the topic for today is how your life has changed since he transitioned. So if you guys could just talk about how you found out, and we'll go from there. Erica, you go first.
Oh, well, I live in California, so it was like really early in the morning for me. And I was at work, and I saw a friend of mine whose wedding I went to, who walked down the aisle to I Would Die For You, posted a thing on Facebook, and that was how I saw it. And then, yeah, I don't know. I went into shock and just started immediately went to YouTube, what's all the stuff I can find, and then tried to verify that it wasn't him, which was really depressing. But yeah, that was how I found out.
How about you, Crystal?
So I was at home, and I don't know, what my day was, but I was definitely in bed, and I was just scrolling through social media, and I believe I saw it on Instagram first. I think Ebony Magazine might have been the first post that I saw of it, and at that point, it wasn't confirmed. It was just reports that the police and everything had been sent to Paisley Park, and then once the news actually was confirmed by a rep, the first thing I thought about was my mom, because the fan that I am now, I definitely wasn't before he died. As far in the sense of fanaticism is concerned. So it really didn't hit me for a long time, probably not until I really started to research and get into other things that I didn't know about. But yeah, that's pretty much how I found out. I was just at home, regular day, scrolling through social media, and it was just like, wow. Really.
How about you, Fisaya?
Yeah, I was also at work when I first heard. I'd been sick, and I think it was my first or second day back. And me and my supervisor shared an office at the time, and it was mid-afternoon, I think. I heard some commotion in the suite outside my office. And my supervisor didn't know I was I wasn't, I try not to go above a 2 or really share my life in the office. She didn't know I really was into Prince. And she just kind of walked in and blurted the news. She shouted, "Prince is dead."
Oh my God.
And of course, I took a beat before it sunk in, and then I felt like I'd been punched in the gut, of course. And I only half believed it, because that's the most absurd sentence. But yeah, so we just went into the thing that you do when a public figure dies. We did our Googles, and my supervisor was like, "Oh, they found him in an elevator," and I just had to tuck it away. so I didn't unravel in the office.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's how I found out.
Wow. Stephanie?
So I was actually getting ready for work. And I remember seeing the first report on Facebook. And then as soon as I saw that report about them finding a person unresponsive at Paisley Park, I got a text from my cousin, and it was a group text with my cousin, my mom, and my aunt, because we're all huge Prince fans. And she was like, somebody was found unresponsive at Paisley Park. And we were just going back and forth like, well, it better not be Prince, because we all know how awful 2016 was as far as losing people. And so I just remember even when news of his plane doing the emergency landing, we were like, not Prince 2016. I know you better not. So seeing that first report, we were all like, okay, it's not him. And as I'm going through the rest of my routine, getting ready for work, get another text. It was Prince. Prince is dead. And I just remember, like, I was in the middle of brushing my hair. I'll never forget. And I just like stopped and dropped my brush, and I was just staring straight ahead in my mirror, like, oh my gosh, like complete shock, like Erica said. So, I get in the car, and I'm driving in a daze, of course, and I rarely listen to the radio, but I happened to turn on the radio that day just to see what news I could find out, and and Pop Life was playing, and I just immediately burst into tears. And I look back and laugh now because it's like really Pop Life, but I just like
I had a moment with Pop Life too. I get you.
Yeah, like I lost it at Pop Life, and so when I get to work, it was really surreal because a lot of people knew that I was a Prince fan, so I had people like talking to me. My cousin at the time worked there, and we're all just in the days. But what really got me was my home office is in Minnesota. It's right in Eden Prairie. So I was hearing from the supervisors out there that they had to like pull agents off of the phone because they were inconsolable. And I was just like,
really?
Yes, absolutely. And it was insane. I just, I knew how loved he was and how impactful he was, but kind of staring that reality in the face and seeing how it impacted people that I had never even thought would, be into him like that. That was a gut punch for sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I guess my story, that day I had the worst migraine. And so I stayed home from work. And I remember I was reading the Ronan Rowe Prince book. Let me back up. About a week prior, I went to the last concert, and I just had to say it was my first Prince concert, and it was crazy because it's very intense. Because I remember when I left, I felt overwhelmed. Like my head was static, and I couldn't really think straight, and I was like, what is this? Because this seemed like a really kind of life-changing kind of event. And it sounds kind of cliche to say that, but it was. And so I had been a Prince fan before, but after that, it just got super intense. I got my Tidal subscription. I listened to his entire discography, what was on Tidal and what I could find in the bootlegs from start to finish. I read a bunch of books. I remember I got the audiobook of the Ronan Rowe book and a bunch of others. And it was just very intense. I'm like, okay, so let me make sure I'm going to stalk Prince forever now. I'm going to like meet him. We're going to date. And so on the 21st, I stayed home from work because I had a really bad migraine. And it was worse than usual because I usually get them. But that day I was a little nauseated and things like that. And it was interesting because my birthday is the 22nd. And so I kept getting a bunch of text messages all day to make sure I was coming to work on the 22nd. I didn't know why, but I was like, okay, whatever, guys. But I got a text message from a coworker. I remember I was sitting on my couch reading the Ronan Rowe book for the second time. And he said a body was found at Paisley Park. And of course, I did the same thing like Stephanie. I was like, oh, I'm sure, somebody got like drunk or something or took a drug and they found him or whatever. And then it came through that it was Prince. And I remember I got this wave of nausea and I like went to go throw up. And then I was like, what? And CNN was horrible. And they had like, oh, I'm crying now. Gosh, sorry. They had a little subtitle that said, Prince is dead. And I was like, that's really callous. You have to say it like that. But it was a lot because I literally had just spent every day the last week, like, not to like change my life to, you know, be around Prince, but to really go deep. And I was learning so much more. And I understood like his music and how it, it was, I mentioned earlier when I want people to appreciate more that the music sounded good. There's also an aspect of you feel seen. And there are a lot of songs that he wrote from like just knowing yourself, or even like sex. Like sex is supposed to be enjoyable. What? You know, it's he gave me a vocabulary that I had never really said out loud, but I always thought about through his songs, and he put things into words. And I was like, yes, finally someone understands. And then he dies, and like, of course. So yeah, and then like the story everybody has right after that, and then you're like 10 levels deep and want to know everything and see everything, and read every story and hear everything there is to know about Prince. And that's what starts to make these changes. So I am like bawling, but next,
it's okay, girl, let it out.
Right. Like he taught me how to feel, that's for sure. So the next thing I want to talk about are some of the key things that you learned as you started to dig deeper. I know as a group, when we formed our group, we were sharing a lot of bootlegs and just performances and books and things like that. And one thing that we also do is have watch parties. So we'll all hop on and, you know, chat and talk about what we're seeing. And I remember the first thing, I just want to get this out of the way. One of the first things we watched was 3 Chains of Gold.
Yes.
And we were not involved at this time. And we had some comments about some people in that. And so I want to talk about that for a little bit. And one of the stars, or the focuses of 3 Chains of Gold, was Maite. So let's talk about how we evolved and how Maite helped us. Who wants to talk about that?
No comment.
Well, here's the thing. Midway through 3 Chains of Gold, which is a convoluted, there's a story, but like you have to watch it like 8 times to like piece together like, oh, this is what you're trying to say. So anyway, on the first pass, he's got his whole band, and there's like a 6-minute segment with his whole band talking smack about Maite and wondering what's her purpose, why does she, what does she do, as if she's some kind of Yoko Ono figure to Prince. And the first time viewing it, I don't know. Like I don't know how to explain it, but that's how it's set up. So you're like, oh, Maite. And then you read her book and you're like, Maite.
Yeah.
It switches a little bit.
Absolutely.
We came around on that.
Yeah. I mean, for me, because I like to be just honest, a lot of it had to do with just being salty. So I came into it like prepared to not care for her because she was there and I wasn't. So, but also to Erica's point, it is, when you watch that, it is kind of set up for you to be like, what is her purpose? What does she do?
These are actual quotes from the movie.
Yeah.
What is her purpose? What does she do?
What does she do? Like, why?
She's in a band now. Like, that's what they say about her. Please seek it out and watch it. Because they just slander her. And he put it in his movie.
Yeah, for the world to consume. So yeah, but then, you know, again, like Erica said, you read the book and you get context and you understand her journey. And for me, if you can't empathize with what she went through and appreciate that about her, and appreciate how raw she was in that book too, because she didn't have to write she didn't have to write it in the first place. So the fact that she shared it is a huge thing. But the fact that she shared it as, you know, as honestly as she could, with, I'm sure, creative license, of course. But Yeah, I came out of that like I was so wrong about how I perceived her to be so naive and maybe even a little what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe even a little cunning to I guess is I can't think of the word that I'm looking for, but I know people throw out gold digger and I never got that, but just trying to position herself to be in his, in his life. That was what I went into with it. And I came out of it doing a full, 180. Like, no, I was so wrong about you. And not only do I respect you, I like you deeply.
Right.
Yeah. Just complete change.
So for me, if you guys remember how tough that journey was for me, I think what it was when I read my taste book was that it painted Prince in a light that I wasn't really ready to, I guess, see. And I wasn't sure that I really understood everything that, the choices that she made and the choices that they made together and the choices that he ultimately made at the end of their relationship. And so for people that, of course, don't know, I definitely took some time. It wasn't a lot of time, but I definitely had to take time and just kind of like think about and try to like understand and see her view and kind of maybe see his perspective. Because it definitely painted the human side of him. And I probably was just in that boat of he can do no wrong, or he was perfect, or that it was always someone else's fault. I feel like it wasn't, my view wasn't completely that, but it definitely had some semblance of that. And so what eventually brought me back was the music. And then, understanding that, mentioning what Steph said, she didn't have to share what she did. It was probably it was a grieving moment for her. It was definitely, she opened herself up to a lot of criticism and a lot of, a lot of attack and a lot of, but a lot of love too, because we do at the end, we did appreciate what she brought to us, not just from her life, but their life together, and just Prince as an individual. I feel like I see him better than before. I feel like you have to accept that human part of him to really accept the person, because he's not perfect, and he never was, and he had his issues, and they went through a tremendous amount in 10 years, and so yeah, might say at the beginning, it was probably just, we all kind of just was on this bandwagon of, who are you? And,
what is your purpose?
Why?
Like, what is your angle here? And, we probably have that view about everyone who, if anyone in his past was to write a book,
sure.
You know what I mean? And then reading the book and kind of, seeing that pain and seeing that vulnerability and seeing a side of him that I was not ready to see, I definitely had to take a moment and just sit back and be like, wow, okay, now do I still feel the same way? And yes, and the answer was yes at the end, because it, at the end of the day, his music is the reason why it's the first reason why we're all, we all came together, and why we're all fans, and why we'll all be at Paisley, and it's his music. And so I am appreciative to Maite because of that perspective that she brought.
Definitely. And I like what you said, Crystal, about the bandwagon, because that's pretty much what it was. If you think, like, so much of what we knew about Prince's world and the people around him are pretty much like, it's mostly hearsay. You know what I mean? Or something someone said in an interview and you just don't know which way to take it. So I feel like regarding Maite, there was just a lot of like unanswered questions. Some questions that Prince brought up himself in the video and didn't even he didn't answer them by the end. So, left with all these all these questions, and you
in true Prince fashion.
Exactly. And it was really easy to be like dismissive of Maite and their relationship, even though I feel like in the back of, at least for me, in the back of my mind, you kind of know something must have been going on that was really deep, because that they, had a son together and the son did not survive. And that like there must be part of the story that you're missing. But it was just a lot easier to just kind of dismiss her as like, she wasn't as significant. And then when after Prince left and she kind of just popped back up, you start to get, I started to feel an icky vibe a little bit, just like, like I think Stephanie, you said, she was just trying to make herself more important, just for the notoriety of it all. And so that was like a slap in the face when I read her book. You kind of learn a lesson in like, you never know what someone is going through. You never know how much of the story you don't have. And you learn a little bit more about grief too, because you could tell that there was so much healing. I hope that there was so much healing in writing that book. And there was a lot of stuff in there that I never thought I would hear about Prince. So it was pretty special.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like all you guys said, some of the biggest lessons I've learned for myself, one of the big highlights was Maite's book. And especially learning kind of like, why do you care? Like, why do we care so much whether or not someone pops up later, and like, why are we judging them for that? Or like you said, we don't know what their life is. Their perspective is theirs. It's okay to observe her perspective and not think anything about it, because it's just all information. And I know for me, from the experience of reading her book, it taught me to, for real, not judge. Like anytime, like in my normal life, if I see someone reacting to something, I don't automatically take offense to it, or I'm not like, oh, well, they're this, that, and the other, because I don't know why they're like that. I don't know how their day has gone. I don't know what kind of traumas happened in their life to have them respond to certain ways. So I'm like, that's their life, that's their journey, and they're allowed to have their experience, And I really apply that to everybody, especially when coming out of the Prince camp. Like in my family situations where sometimes they're mad at me, I'm like, okay, I know you're like that because of this other thing that you're really responding to. So I'm not going to take offense to whatever's happening right now. I kind of have adopted that with everything. And it really was something that I learned from reading Maite's book, because like all you guys said, we were all like, yeah, okay, Maite. And then after it was like, oh. And so I feel
I was gravely wrong.
Yeah, right. I literally, like, I truly just, I mean, I might comment on something sometimes, but I quickly follow it with, but I don't know their situation, and it's not fair for me to judge their situation, and really it's none of my business anyway. So, yeah. So that was an interesting shared experience. And I'm with you, Crystal, for like 2 weeks after that. I was like, yeah, me and Prince are best friends. We're just friends.
Right. Oh, God.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, God.
I mean, he's not cute or anything. I mean, I guess he looks okay, but, he's just my best friend. And then I think...
Did anyone but Tanisa buy that?
No, not at all.
I think it was like some picture, like a jam picture or something that changed my mind. I was like, oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, we can...
Never mind. Back square one.
Or lower.
Okay, so let's talk about like some of the performances that you saw or heard that kind
This is embarrassing for me. I have to out myself.
Go ahead, sis.
Oh, gosh darn it. Well, I didn't know how to find anything, so I would just sit on YouTube because stuff just started coming up. So I watched like all of the Purple Rain show from Syracuse and stuff, and I would just watch full shows as they came up. And the one that got me was the 1986 Detroit show.
Enough of that tame shit. Who wants some head?
But it's so good.
So good.
I fully went down. That was when I went off the deep end because it was weeks later, and my friends were like, "Are you still listening to Prince?" And I was like, "Oh, this train is not stopping. This is so. We've just boarded," and I went out of my way and I bought a bootleg DVD of that show. I found out what it was. I found out where to get it, and I have a DVD of that show. I didn't even have a way to watch it. A DVD player. So that was what really got me into like, oh, I need to watch all of this man's shows start to finish.
Gosh.
So I guess I'll jump on the Detroit show bandwagon really quick. Mm-hmm. And I remember it had to be within the week of his passing. And it wasn't even the full show. It was on YouTube, and it was just the head performance. And when I tell you that changed my life, because I had never seen it before, and it changed my life, and that's all I'm gonna say.
So half the views on that video are from Crystal, and half are from me. We can just
we need to make that thirds because if that video, I kid you guys not, if that video was still up on YouTube, you could go through the comments and see how many times I was there over months. It's disgusting. I am not proud of it. But that concert and the 82 Capitol Theater concert for Controversy, those two were the two that really took me into the deep end, because like Erica said, a lot of stuff was popping up on YouTube, and then I was just, so I'm not a bootleg finder person at all. Like I leave that to the professionals. Crystal, Kanisa, you guys are amazing at that. I just don't have the time or the savvy to locate that way. But I was for a time going in and finding a ton of different videos. So I had saved, I bought OneDrive. I bought OneDrive. I was like, no, I need space so I could save all these videos, download them from YouTube, all over the internet, wherever I could find them. And I got from like all the way from the New York Dirty Mind show, the Paris Dirty Mind show, all the way to some shows in 91 that I had downloaded and saved. I was like, great, let's get into this. So, but those two, the Capitol Theater and the Cobo Hall, those two. And, of course, every single 1999 concert took me over the edge. That's just, I didn't even go into that because, like, of course, we know. But those two, because when he started taking off the suspenders at the Capitol Theater, I about lost my mind.
In his two big pants?
In his two big pants.
That wouldn't fall down for some reason.
Would not fall down. But that, and then Head on that concert too. With the guitar licking. Yeah, okay, I'm done.
Wow.
So I also want to just add that the first concert that I had ever saw of Prince was Raven to the that's my very first concert I ever saw. And so
oh my God, the one with Lenny Kravitz.
Of course. And I had the DVD. So of course that was the first thing that I watched, after I had my life turned upside down by Head at Copper Hall. So, yeah.
I saw that the other day at Amoeba, by the way. It was on sale, and I should have bought it just to have it because...
Yeah, I paid $10 for mine at FYE. So, yeah.
How about you, Fisaya?
For me, it's funny because I told myself after he first passed, I told myself I wasn't go down into the deep.
Girl, we all told ourselves that.
I know. I remember having this conversation with myself. Fisaya, you're not going to do this. And I totally did. Because I think, like you said, Erica, like all that stuff popped up on YouTube. I think the turning point was probably when I saw, it wasn't even like the entire Sign of the Times concert. It was just like it was probably, I think it was It's a Beautiful Night.
Yep.
Gonna Be a Beautiful Night.
Yeah.
I was watching
my
it.
second gateway drug.
Yes, it's so good. And I was at work when I watched it too. And just the level of theatrics, everything that he put in, on the stage and his outfits and stuff. I was like, I think that's when I was taken out.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. When it first happened, I don't know that I got spun up on the concerts, because I remember we were talking about Detroit and all you guys were going crazy overhead or some other stuff, and I was like, I don't remember. I don't know what it is. Or maybe I was just doing something else. I'm like, what are you talking about? Or well, I do remember, though, one of the things that spun me out that I always try to downplay was North Beach Jazz Show 2.
Oh my God!
Yes. Crystal mentioned, she was like, because I started out, I was like, I only want to watch pro shot stuff, which is stupid. Don't do that, guys. But I was like, okay, let me try this thing because she said it was good. And so I remember I was working from home and I had it up on my second monitor, and I started hearing these sounds, and I looked over and he was like on the microphone doing stuff. I kid you not, like I felt like I got really hot, like I was overheating. I paused it. I stood up from my computer and walked outside my office and was like, I'm not going back in there. Like, I don't even know how to deal with that. Like, I don't even know these emotions that I'm feeling right now. What is this? I'm freaked out. And then I kept trying to, like, get through it. I think it was, like, Joy and Repetition or something like that. And
Yes,
kept,
it is.
Yeah, so I could play. I went, like, 10 seconds, stopped it. I was like, nope, I can't do this. I can't. And then I remember posting in our group, I was like, hey, guys, let me get some moral support. I think we should watch this as a group because I literally cannot get through this by myself. And it's like those type of things. It's interesting because usually, like, I listen to Boots more than I watch stuff, even though I have like my Friday night have a sip and watch things. I generally spend more time listening. And so I remember one thing I spun on was one day I wanted to find the definitive version of Shh. And that's from the Gold Experience. And I was like, I feel like he never really sells it, because whenever I listen to Gold era versions of that, he seems kind of not disconnected from it, but that song is very like sensual and erotic, and he never really sells it. And I wanted a version where he sells it.
Yeah, he kind of sounds like the regular track.
Yeah.
Yeah. It gets better.
When
though,
I hurt your
down
feelings.
Wait. What?
Continue.
Okay. So I'm going through all my bootlegs. I find a version from 2006, I think, is one of the Versace experiments. And he's singing it a different way. I remember it was 2 o'clock in the morning, like 2:30 in December sometime. It was really cold outside. And I heard the version, and I was like, I've made a mistake in trying to sing out the version. Again, the response of getting really hot, I had like a slight panic attack a little bit. And I remember I walked out to get my mail at 2:30 in the morning because it was like, I didn't have a coat on. I was like, this is too much right now. And
listen, I like the way you look tonight. I like the way you smell tonight. I wonder, can
so those are the things that I really liked about Prince as I was learning more about myself, because usually I'm very like non-emotional about stuff, not excited about stuff. I really push down on my emotions a lot to not like address them. And so, but with Prince, when you're listening or observing him, he makes you feel very present in the moment and feel a lot, whatever you're feeling, whether it's happiness or sadness or turned on or whatever. It's all of those things all at once, which for me is why, because the way I'm weird about my emotions, I'd prefer to listen more than listen and see, because it's too much for me. But an interesting lesson to learn that it's okay to feel all of that, and to not, to just to enjoy it and not analyze it, but just feel all of those things,
That was something that we had talked about when we were all at Celebration, was we had watched what was the show that, it was a 2015 Third Eye Girl show that they showed.
In Montreal.
And I personally, I felt a victim to Prince in this situation. Like, it was this crazy show, and I was like, oh my gosh, I just have all these like, feelings. And I looked around, and everybody else obviously does too. And I was like, what a talent, and what an art to make every person in this room, and every person who was at that show, and every person who's been at every Prince show, you know, feel all of those things, and then make it such a personal experience. But you're in a room, you know, we were in a soundstage with you know, 500 other people or whatever. But what a skill, what a gift to be able to touch that many people on that level, because like, you're sitting there like, oh my God, this is my thing. This is for me. He's talking to me. He's performing for me. But you're in this room with, you know, hundreds, maybe thousands of other people, you know?
Yeah, and to feel that, and he's not even here anymore. That's
Right. It's just a video of him.
Right.
Well, Stephanie, what did you say? Like, how great do you have to be to show a concert at a concert?
Right.
Of you at an old concert you already did, and people are
amazing.
crying and screaming and like losing their minds.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it felt like I was there. You know what I'm saying? Like at the actual concert that we were watching. And I felt that way last year when we were watching the concert screenings, this year, and then Prince on the big screen. It was so surreal, because in the back of my mind, I know that he's gone, but it just, like Kenise said, you feel so in the moment and so present. You're feeling all these things as if he is right there in front of you doing it. And that is a level of talent, a level of giftedness that I have yet to experience in any other artist. Just wow.
Yeah. So since we did talk a little bit about Celebration, so for the people who have been to Paisley Park, I know Stephanie and I went when they opened up for the first tribute, October 2016. And then me and Stephanie went to Celebration year one. And then everybody, except for Sayo, but we called you, went to Celebration. Yeah, this year. And I know for me, the first, well, I'll talk about Celebration first time. It's, to hear the stories is one thing. And we talk about being inspired by the way he worked and hearing stories from people how he could be tough and how he could be nice and all those other things. But the experience of being in Paisley Park is an experience in itself. Because people always ask, can you feel him there, or different things like that. And I know for me, at first, like October 2016, I felt it felt a little sanitized, but there are some moments where you went to certain rooms, like the Galaxy Room especially, where it's like, oh yeah, this is really heavy with energy in here. But there's an experience that you have when you go there, and then how it impacts you once you're no longer there. It's real. So
It's real.
You guys talk about that.
Do you want me to go? I have a lot to say on it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, okay, so I'm not a deeply spiritual person. I have tried my whole life. I was raised Catholic. Like at my first communion, I'm like, oh, I'm going to feel Jesus today. No, that did not happen. So I've never really felt anything. And then people always say about Paisley Park, they're like, oh, I felt him there. And I'm like, my first 2 days in Paisley Park, and I'm like, this place is amazing, but I don't feel any of that. But what ended up happening for me is that I think the third day after we left, we were in the car, and I was like, oh, I don't want to go home. I'm not, no, take me back. I'm not done yet. And I felt that, I just felt like a weird, longing to be in there. Mm-hmm. And we went back, and the last day at Celebration, I went out during one of the shows to use the restroom, and I went into a hallway that I was not supposed to be in. And they were like, you're not supposed to be in here. And I was like, I'm just going to use the bathroom, and went in there anyway. No one stopped me. But I was alone in there, and I just took a second to just stand there and just kind of notice all the things around me. And because everything it's wild. Like the ceiling of the bathroom is painted galaxy, and like, there's like a weird ceramic flower on the floor over here, and all the furniture is like this wild, like 80s opulence, but like, is it futuristic? It's all crazy. So I took a moment to like feel that, and I just felt this rush of being super inspired and like I was at home and like I felt understood. Like, yeah, make whatever weird art that you want to make, and people will like it, and be true to yourself, and that kind of like, I feel like it's kind of a cliche sentiment or whatever, but I felt that really strongly. And when we were leaving that night, like, we all got in the car together, and Kenise was like, how does everyone feel? And I cried the whole way home because I did not want to leave that, like,
oh my gosh,
overwhelming, inspiring feeling. And I've never felt like that. It was the wildest thing. So, yeah, it was really intense in a way that I didn't expect it to be.
Yeah. So for me, it was my first time going to Paisley Park, and I was so excited. And so walking in for the first time was so overwhelming because there was so much to take in, but we're of course being rushed to the town stage, so there's no moment to, really just look at everything. Of course, not until our tour. But for me, I felt myself getting emotional just because this is the moment I've been waiting for, and I'm finally here, and I'm in Paisley Park. And it took me a moment to just realize that I was in his home. I was in this place that he made for us. His goal was specifically to share this and to teach and to be around people that he cared about. And that was all, to me, that was the purpose of Paisley Park. And so I did find myself getting emotional, but of course I sucked it up because I was expecting to get emotional, for the rest of the 4 days. But what ended up happening is not that. I definitely didn't, was looking for that moment. I was looking for that, that a sign of some corny sign, like a wind blowing across my face or something. And Prince, I know, here, or just something weird like that. But I did see throughout the celebration, I did not feel that. But what I did feel was a sense of just togetherness. Even with people that we did not know, everyone was so nice. Everyone was so open. Everyone was so welcoming. And so that's, I think, in a way, that was the sign. And I was looking for, this feeling of him when it was all around us. It was just several random moments where I just, turned around and looked at everybody or looked at you guys and just watched you guys take everything in. And when I got home, that's what I thought about. I was, looking for this sense of him when the fam being together was pretty much, what I probably should have been focusing more on. And so, definitely leaving. And, me and Steph talked about that on Twitter a little bit. It's just like, why am I not still in Minneapolis? I want to be I don't want to be here. I want to go and just be in Paisley Park. I just want to be on the property. I just want to go sit on the grass and just talk to him. And just, even though I know I can do that here, wherever I am, but I just kind of want to just be in that, just in that atmosphere. It's just something so electric about it. And I definitely did not want to leave either. And something else I just want to mention, on the, I guess on the topic of what I took away from Paisley was wanting to learn more about music, because I feel like my understanding is still it's definitely better than it was, but I want to learn more. I want to learn more about music, so I can learn more about how he put his music together and how things are constructed and why, and kind of delve deep into the meaning of his songs. for the ones that I, may not understand it, just like the beat too, so and also live music, like, oh my, there's nothing like live music. I've never experienced that in my life, ever. Yeah. I've never seen anyone perform without a track behind them, ever. And it was so electric to see Shelby J and the Funk Soldiers and Sheila E. and even F Deluxe. They sounded amazing. Everybody sounded so good. And I remember talking to Steph about this at the house. It was just so easy to just imagine him there, because you could just imagine him during the Funk Soldiers performance. He could have just been by the drummers with his microphone, and Shelby J and the show would have been the same pretty much. And that's what I felt like. And and I just loved that, we can feel that even though he's not here. And, I remember getting emotional during live on the big screen, because I just thought about, his band is so amazing, and what he left is so amazing. And, so just all of that. So the experience at Paisley was just something I'll never forget. And I hope to go back every year, God willing. I really do. I can't imagine we're going to Paisley again. I want to be there. I honestly want to move to Minnesota. It was amazing. So yeah, I'm going on and on and on. So you guys can go.
I guess that leaves me. So first time being in Paisley, it was surreal. It was really surreal, and it was really bittersweet. And like Kanisa said, it did feel kind of sanitized, at least during the tour part, but in the moments that, like walking in the first time, they kind of had us in the reception area for a little bit until we figured out, who our tour guide was and when our tour was going to start. So just kind of standing there and being able to absorb the first wall that you walk by where the staircase is, and Carmelia, shout out to Carmelia, pointing out like where the elevator used to be. Like, it was just so emotional for me. Like I had like tears on the verge of spilling for most of the tour, and then they finally spilled out in his office when Cassandra O'Neill came in and like shared her story, and she got a little choked up, and I was just like, okay, and I'm crying. But definitely you could feel his energy in certain rooms, like Kanisa said as well. So she mentioned the Galaxy Room, and I kind of got that, but for me, it was Studio B, just because the vibe in there, like seeing all the candles that were burnt down in there, his piano, the ping pong table, knowing that that's where he recorded a lot, too. It was just like, that's where I felt his energy, and felt him in Paisley for the most part. But, yeah, it was bittersweet because I was glad to be there, but it just sucked that it was under these circumstances. But
you always thought your first time you'd be there, he would be there too. Like you'd be going to a thing,
right, that you would be going to a thing. But then on the other hand, I knew most likely because I wasn't as much of a fan as I am now when he was here, I probably would never have been here anyway. So it just was like, how do I reconcile these feelings? Yes, it's such a hard pill to swallow. Like, how do I reconcile these feelings? Because I'm so grateful to be here, but why is it under this particular circumstance that I'm here? And so I just echo Erica's sentiments. I echo Crystal's sentiments as far as not wanting to leave. It was so hard to leave the first time. And the thing that trips me out the most is I almost didn't go. I was so close to not going. Like I remember Kanisa talking about it, and she's like, oh, you should just come, like, you guys should come, and we have a house and this. And I was like, oh, but work. Oh, but I'm scared to fly. I've only flown once. Oh, but I don't know. I've never been. And just like every excuse possible that I could think of was going, was popping into my brain. And then they announced the tribute concert. They announced that Paisley would be open for tours, and I was just like, when am I ever going to be able to experience this again? Not knowing that Celebration was going to be a thing. But yeah, I was just like, I have to go. I have to go. And so the fact that I almost missed that, it blows my mind. And I'm so glad, Kanisa, for you pressuring me into going. Yeah, peer pressure, and also for peer pressuring me into going to Celebration the first year. Because being able to go back for a second time, especially after such a short turnaround, it was like 6 months, if that. It just felt like being at home. I think, Crystal, you mentioned that, like, everyone being so nice and being together, like that sense of togetherness. I definitely felt that at Celebration the first year. And it was pretty cool to see familiar faces this year and just feeling like it felt like going back home. It really, really did. And I think that is such a testament to the legacy he left behind, because all of his collaborators and peers call Paisley their second home. And it definitely feels like that. It feels like being at home. And I'm sure that that's what he wanted for his fans to feel at home. He built it for us. He said that. So he built it for all of us. So the fact that feeling, that energy of everybody feeling at home is able to, be maintained even after his passing, I think is just, again, a testament to the legacy he left behind. And I want to go back now. Like, I'm looking at, like, all right, so when can I get out there to do this ultimate tour? Because I would love to be inside a Studio B. Yes, inside the control room. I got to get in there, like, just any excuse to be out there and to feel all of that again. I wouldn't hesitate.
I just wanted to add really quick in regards to Celebration is that, listening to Stephanie and Kanisa's stories about how emotional the first Celebration and especially the tribute was. What I was kind of glad that at least for me, Celebration being the second year, but my first time, it wasn't super emotional for me. There was times where it's just like, should I feel sad right now? Because other people were feeling, emotional. But for me, I'm just glad that the experience wasn't super emotional. Of course, I got emotional when I got home. Those feelings, of course, come back up. But I'm glad during Celebration, it was Celebration for me. And I just hope next year it gets easier for other people. And I feel like once everyone gets to, or at least the majority gets to a point where it's just like, okay, I'm here to have a good time. I don't want Paisley workers with Kleenex boxes at the door anymore. Like, let's leave Purple Rain. Let's leave Sometimes It Snows in April. Let's leave it off the set list.
Nothing compares to you.
Right. It could be done.
I just want to hear his tracks, whether it be Little Red Corvette or Wonderful Ass or Pussy Control or whatever, from the most common to the not most common. I just want to hear that music pumping, everybody dancing and feeling good. I hope it just gets easier for everyone as the time goes by, because I just want Celebration to really be Celebration, and I don't want it to be a time to grieve, and I just hope it gets easier for everyone.
Yeah, that's a great point, because last year, at least for me, it was really emotional on the last day. I kind of kept it together, like Erica said, all throughout the the first 3 days. I was good, I was fine, and then that fourth day when they did, kind of a snippet of what became Prince on the big screen, and it was Purple Rain, and I mean, bawling, and I didn't even I didn't even realize that I was crying as hard as I was. But it felt good to release that, because I didn't realize that I was still carrying that. Because I hadn't cried in months. I was like, oh no, I'm good. Like, I cried at Pop Life. I cried at, watching Purple Rain. I cried a few times here and there. Like, I should be good. But it was very heavy last year. And you could feel it. It was palpable how heavy it was last year. And, maybe rightfully so, because it's the 1 year anniversary and things like that. So I get it. But I am definitely with you, Crystal. This year felt a little more celebratory for me. But it still very much was a hard time for a lot of folks emotionally. But hopefully, as we continue, it does get to be more of a, like you said, celebratory.
Yeah, I remember the first tribute, the October tribute, they did the Purple Rain with him singing thing too. And because I didn't cry about Prince at all until that day. And because I mentioned being emotionally depressed, and randomly I cry at random times, because I'm always like, I'm never gonna cry, and I just cried like an hour ago. But I remember, because we were sitting there and like my feet hurt and Purple Rain started. I was like, okay, I guess we got to do this song. And then his voice came on, and at first I was like, did they get like an impersonator to sing? That's so lame, because it sounded like, because the band was playing and we heard the voice, and like, that's really lame, guys. Why would you do that? And then I realized it was him. And I stood up and I started like bawling, crying, and I had my hand in the air like it was church. And it was like, it was the first time I cried, and it was like this huge deluge of emotions. And then when it was over, I was like, all right, got that over with. I feel better now.
Right. Yeah.
But then, so the first celebration happened, and then Steph had her moment during that Purple Rain. But I remember looking around the room, and I think I might have been the only person who didn't cry that time, because I was expecting it. But everyone looked completely like broken, and it was amazing to see like the whole room like bawling or shocked, or honestly it was a little traumatizing, if I'm going to be honest about it. Even though it was the second time we'd seen that, it was just a lot. And I remember they tried to bring it around with a happy song right after, but everyone is like, no, we're done. And people like had their hands on their head. Like, people were like, it was really, I've never seen that much emotion from such a large group of people before. And it's pretty powerful, because he sounded so present. Like, oh, he's gonna walk out. He's gonna be like, psych.
Yeah, seriously. I had that thought for like 2 seconds. I was like, oh my gosh, is this when he revealed that this is all?
Like maybe he was like, going through something, and now he's back. Like, wait.
Now he's gonna come out and lecture us about real music from real musicians. We should take this news here.
With a PowerPoint. No, but it's really amazing. Like someone was saying earlier, that this dude, most of us have never met him, but we all feel like he's or we call him boyfriend in our group. He's like, he's boyfriend, a fairy god boyfriend. Right. The professor, he's a human, absolutely. But what happens when you lean into your gifts and unapologetically like grow them and practice so that you can have this impact on people? And everybody has something about them that they're talented and gifted with, but a lot of people are afraid to share, or afraid to really dig in and be like they're not good enough or whatever. But when you do that, you kind of block your blessings a little bit, because or block the blessings for other people to receive your gift too. So absolutely. For me, like, these are some of the things that I'm learning about myself. And like, I would never think I'd be on a podcast talking about Prince, because, I'm very self-conscious about my voice and things like that. But here we are. And I was very to myself. I went to work. I went home. That was my life, pretty much my whole life. I didn't really date anybody. Didn't have a social life. Couldn't pick up the phone and be like, hey, what's up with anybody, because I didn't develop those relationships. And then he transitioned. And then I met people in Atlanta who were Prince fans, started going to parties with them, started the Tumblr group, met all you guys, traveled with you guys, who I've never met before on the internet. And my parents were like,
Yeah.
who is this person? Give me the address. What is their name? What is their phone number? And I'm
so
like,
true.
I'm 30, guy. I'm 33 years old. Why are we still doing this, parents? But it's kind of crazy, like how like Steph, you were like first time on the plane by yourself, and Crystal, and it's crazy that through going deeper with Prince, we learn more about ourselves and being better about being who we truly are, and that type of growth is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. And just what you said about leaning into your gifts. And we had this conversation when we were in Minnesota. What was that? 7 years ago now. Like, it feels so long ago. I can't believe it.
Right.
But just what the impact would be if all of us just leaned into our gifts, like you said, and really. And this is something I think about anyway, just because of my spiritual background, about how I show up in people's lives. But I cannot sit here and say that this whole experience, post Duckage, has not made me consider that more. Just seeing the aftermath of what his showing up in other people's lives look like. And I'm just like, I'm always thinking about that in all of my interactions now, whereas before I was a lot more passive about it. It's like, I might have a good day, I might have a bad day. And, he had those too, but people still, even in his worst days, people still knew who he was at his core. And that is why they speak about him the way that they do now. And that is why they live the way, or it's part of the reason why they live out the way they live their lives now, because of the way he lived his life. And it is such a true thing that you said, Kanisa, about you are not only blocking your blessings, but you could possibly be blocking others' blessings as well if you are not at least on the trajectory to walk in your full potential. And
Wow.
It's so convicting. It's so freaking convicting for me, and I think about it daily.
The ongoing thing that you hear from the people who worked with him is how hard he pushed you, and how he said, "Oh, you do this now." Like John Blackwell, "Oh, you're gonna run sound." Like, what? I don't know how to run sound. Like, yeah, you do. You'll figure it out.
Right.
And that kind of thing is so inspiring to me. Like, I need to have that kind of belief in myself. Like, as a person who, I create varying degrees of art, whatever, I'm like, I need to put that kind of stock in myself, because, he would see that in people and make them believe that about themselves, and, and kind of lead them down this path of like, well, yeah, just try it. Like, yeah, you do this now, you can do it. And that is also was a big takeaway for me from like being in Paisley Park and hearing all those stories and stuff. Yeah.
Wow.
So you're going to come next year?
Yeah, I was going to say, you need to be there next year.
I want to go so bad, y'all.
All your life plans, please. Clear it out.
I was so close. I think when Kanisa, you had posted it in our group, I was in lecture as I read it, and I was like dying inside. I wanted so badly to make it work, but I knew that it really wasn't. I'm doing a master's, and I just knew like it'll be like 3 weeks away from finals, and I'd be dying. But I think next year I'm gonna have to go.
Yeah,
I have
to. You do.
I have to.
I did want to note one thing, difference between first year and second year. First year, when we left, I was very much about, okay, we have like this tendency as Prince fans to consume him and consume him and consume him, and, not really do anything with that. And so my goal with the first year is more than like watch all the things and listen to all the things, but also to share these things so other people can hear it. And so I don't know if I should mention this, the Mixcloud stuff, or like, let's dig into this random bootleg that's like I don't know, The Work Part 8 and CD number 52.
Blast from the Past Part
8.
92.
And pick out this song for people to hear because it's really cool. And maybe it's unfinished, but it's a different version of something that you might know, or it might be something you've never known before. So let's share some of that. But this year, you guys noted all the energy in Paisley and how you feel inspired at Paisley and all this other stuff. It's like my goal for this coming year is to create Paisley where I'm at. So, like my job day to day, I'm a IT development lead. So I lead teams and we're doing software. And part of that is this agile methodology, which very much is in line with how Prince did stuff. So it's not so much like, what is the cadence of your work? Did you get your work done? It's as a team, we're all working together. We're all accountable for the product. We all want to make sure it's good. And we all recognize that, it's iterative development. You're going to make a mistake. You're going to learn from the mistakes and we're continuously improve. And so for me, like outside of that, even more, it's like when you're in Paisley Park, I'm not sure I would recommend this, but there are people who would be in line to get merch and they'll hand a complete stranger their credit card and be like, hey, can you get me that? I'm going to go to the bathroom. Not feel anything about it. I mean, it's a little weird, but it happens. And or even like someone starting to like have a breakdown right next to you and like you're holding on to them or hugging them, or you're sitting next to someone who would normally never speak to and just strike up a conversation like Zach from Prince songs. He was just sitting next to like these 40-year-old women. He's like,
He made so many friends. I love it.
Yeah, I had that happen a couple times. It was just like, oh, hey, how are you? Is this your first time? And I love that.
Yeah.
One lady was like, hey, you were on my flight 2 years ago.
So it's like, that's part of, why that feels so special, but also to take that and do that with people around you. Like if you're walking down the street, why do you just ignore the person? Just say, hey, how are you? Like, what's up? How's your day going? And not like a smile thing, that people say, hey, why aren't you smiling? But, to be genuinely invested in the people who are around you, or if someone's or to just encourage someone. Like you don't have to criticize everybody. Like they're just trying it out. So just, say, keep trying, or give an encouraging word, or give a hug, or just don't be judgmental. Just accept someone's situation as theirs and let them figure it out. It's like, just make Paisley Park where you're at. And I'm trying to do that online too, because sometimes, especially when you're in the Prince account and you're tweeting out stuff and someone will respond in a really negative or critical way. A year or two ago, I'd probably be like, well, here's what you didn't know, and this should be corrected. And it's like, no one cares. Let them agree. I mean, they can look it up or something, or just respond with a positive, like someone's being critical. You say, well, maybe here's a different perspective. And then you go back and forth. And I've changed a lot of conversations I've had online that way when someone came at me with some kind of negativity and I respond in kindness, and it changes the whole trajectory of the conversation to, when it's over, we're friends, So it's like,
Yes.
Again, from earlier, you don't know what they're going through. You don't know why they're responding. Maybe something happened to them. If you respond with kindness, now they have an example of, a good situation, So, So last year was tell people more about Prince and so they can learn. This year is spread the energy of Paisley where I am.
I love that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I really love
special.
that.
That's powerful.
We'll see how well it works. No one's really come for me hard yet, so we'll see. Like, actually, never mind. I'm about to write a song. It's called FUNK. Like that one song he did. Yeah.
I do love what you said about Prince sort of investing in the people around them, and how we can do that too. I can't remember who. I think it was like Esperanza Spalding or something. I don't think she was even talking about Prince, but she was talking about how she got into music in the first place. And she said that it was just a bunch of adults in her neighborhood who just like worked together to create this little music club. And it went on for years and years and years. And if it hadn't been for that, that was the only way she could have had access to music. I hope I'm getting that story right. And you never think about it, but it's just like lots of little miracles like that. It doesn't have to be like a huge investment of time.
Right.
But even Prince himself, like there was somebody in his community who told him he could do it. You know what I mean? Or told him that he was good. And I mean, you know, you have to give him credit for what he put into himself, but he couldn't have done it on his own. And we also can just invest, even if it's just a little bit, just like a little bit of encouragement into other people. You never know what you're going to do.
Yeah.
Okay. So does anybody have any parting thoughts you want to share? We're talking about, again, how have you changed? We'll go around the world, guys. We'll go around the table.
In a day?
Yeah. So just parting thoughts, thinking about how you were post-book out and how you perceived yourself to be differently from what you've learned after the book out.
I think for me, I'm a lot more perceptive. I feel like I look at things more deeply than I did before after his passing. I feel like, you know, whether it's with music or with, you know, reading someone's opinion or just any type of think piece, or with Prince in general, I definitely try not to look at things just on its face. And I try to ask questions of why this happened, or, you know, I guess maybe more on Kanissa's point of not passing judgment, but you know, I think that's what it is. It's just having a deeper perspective on things, because you know, you can't just look at Prince on his face. It would be the most deceiving thing in the world. He is one of the most complex artists ever. You know, you really have to dig deep. His story and his views, his opinions, everything that he's gone through is in his music. So you really can't just look at it, a image or a title or a lyric. You really just kind of have to piece things together and, you know, ask questions and kind of just take your perspective and, you know, come to a conclusion. And so I think that's pretty much how I've changed since Prince died, because I definitely wasn't that way before he died. I kind of was just, I listened to 3121 on repeat. I listened to, you know, that was just my album. I love Raven to the Joy Fantastic, you know, and I loved a lot of his 80s stuff. I didn't listen to a whole lot of the 90s before he passed. I was you know, typical Purple Rain, but 3121 was really my album. But yeah, after his passing, I definitely, you know, getting into bootlegs was probably the first step for me. Listening to just, I mean, his stage presence is so different from the actual, he brings you'll feel like you're listening to a different track. And, you know, that by itself was just one of the ways I was able to just dig really, really deep. And I feel like that branched out into other aspects of my life. So I feel like that's kind of how he helped me, or how he's affected my life since he passed away.
I'll bite. I went through, you know, your typical grief, like, oh, life is short, I gotta do stuff. Yeah. And I had spent the past couple years just like working, just really only working. And so like 2016, I visited both my grandparents, which I hadn't done since I was, you know, in 10 years, whatever. I saw my family a lot more, and I just started to like take advantage of opportunities that just on feeling that guilt of not getting to see him live, because like I live in LA, he was at the Forum here. I wasn't in town for those, and it was like, oh, I'll see him later. And, you know, he comes back and it's like, I'll see him later. And then there's no later. So that kind of, that typical like, oh my God, I can't miss out on stuff. You know, right before we left for Celebration, I'm messaging Stephanie like, we have to see Beyonce now. Empty your bank account with me. She did.
And we did.
We did. But stuff like that. And then also just working hard, and I don't know, being inspired by somebody who, you know, as we talked about, he worked really, really hard, and applying that to myself Like, because I have a day job and I have like an Etsy store, and then I'm like, but what else can I do? How can I challenge myself? What can I do to move beyond that? Like, what would Prince do? He would not sleep and work constantly, which I don't necessarily recommend, but that could kind of inspire me to like take myself more seriously as an artist and push myself in those ways. Harder than I was previously, I guess.
Go ahead.
No.
Go ahead, sis.
So for me, definitely can echo what Erica said, just as far as, making sure I'm not putting off things that I want to do until later, because later might not come. So it definitely, again, like I said earlier, I never would have jumped on a plane to Minneapolis just to go to Paisley Park with people that I've known for a full 3 months at the time. Trying to explain that to my parents, to my mom, like, hey, so I'm going to Minneapolis. Oh, who are you going with? My friends. Which friends? My friends. They're my friends. That's all you need to know. But yeah, like I never would have met you incredible people who I adore, each and every one of you, and our folks that are not on the podcast that were part of our group originally. I have been to places that I never imagined going to. Like, you could not get me on a plane before 2016. And once in 2015 when I went to see my sister, and that was because I had to see my sister. So, and then as far as just my day-to-day, really, again, what I said earlier about thinking and really trying to be more aware of the way I show up in people's lives and the type of impression I leave. And I don't mean impression like, oh, do they like me? But just as far as what am I sharing knowledge-wise? What am I sharing as far as wisdom, things that I've been giving? Am I paying it forward? Am I using my gifts to just be a blessing to other people? Am I, how am I showing up to them, and what am I leaving them with?
How do people feel after they're with you? Did they feel like it was a positive experience?
Right.
Absolutely. And again, that those are things that I thought about before, but not as much. It really pushed me to a different level of awareness as far as that's concerned, especially in interpersonal relationships, especially at work, because I've been, everyone that knows me knows that I have had frustrations with my job, but making sure, because I am a supervisor, that I don't just stop at supervisor, but I'm also, at different times, I might need to be a counselor. I might need to just be a friend. I might need to be this, that. And so that has really, his legacy has taught me that I need to wear all those different hats in order to really walk in my gift. And then the third thing that I started realizing is just kind of being comfortable with me and being confident in me. Like, I've always been relatively reserved. So yeah, like Anissa said, I would never hop on a podcast or get up on stage and dance with the time or, any of that stuff. So yeah, just trying new things and being confident in doing them and enjoying the experience.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I definitely think I've put a little bit more energy into like expanding myself, because it's wild how we just block ourselves because we think that's something I kind of thing. But you can. So there's a lot. I think left. I started examining like my motivations and my intent for doing the things that I do. I mean, kind of like y'all said before, I'd been just kind of living passively and living according to what a lot of other people value. And so his death was like a wake-up call. Like, well, what do I value? Because that matters too. And just even that like switch in mindset, it causes, it's like a ripple effect. It just manifests in so many different ways. So even in like I'll be shopping for clothes like once or twice a year that I do that. And I'll be like, this is, I don't really wear this color. Oh, but maybe, I might, I could rock it.
Yes.
Stuff like that. Just valuing what I love and what I'm interested in, even if it's like not socially useful. I don't know if that makes sense. That kind of thing.
Awesome. I guess for me, I agree with all of what you guys said, and also all of those things apply. Except for me, I think I take my life less seriously because I would worry so much. I'd have like plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G for work. I would just, be concerned what people thought, or I have to overwork. I have to be seen as, special, or that everyone likes me, or that everyone knows me to be a hard worker, and I have to do more than what people expect always. And I have to stay up until like 11 o'clock at work and not leave, and, all that stuff. And then he passed away, and the story of him being on the elevator by himself and no one being there. And I was like, wow, because that could easily be me. Because while I'm working like this, again, like I said earlier, I'm not establishing friendships where people would be like, hey, let's go to lunch because I'm busy working. Or, it's just I'm so focused on being this successful person. Like I'm 33, I got my house, I got my nice career with a nice salary, but what else do I have besides that? So it's like, it's going to be okay. I don't have to have plan A through F. Maybe a plan B is fine, but I'm going to trust myself more because I know what the answer is. I don't have to worry and stress about it. It's going to work out. And if it doesn't work out, then it's a lesson, but it's not the end of the world. So relax. And then also, talking to people more. Like I probably talk to Erica almost every day for the last 2 years. And
it's true.
Yeah. And so like I know Erica's taught me, to ask people, how are you? Because I probably would have never done that before. And to be concerned. I mean, because I'm usually concerned about others, but I'm like, I'm just going to worry about it. And did someone make it? Like I had this boyfriend a couple years ago, and he lived like 2 blocks away, and I'd be like, text me when you get home. I just want to make sure you're not in a ditch, stuff like that. So it's just like, whatever happens is meant to happen. Don't worry about it so much. Sometimes you're going to learn a lesson. Sometimes it's going to work out. Sometimes it's not. It's not the end of the world. Don't need to worry about this thing you don't have control over. Leave it up. Not, let it go and leave it up to a chance, but just don't worry. So, So thank you guys for participating in this first episode of Muse to the Pharaoh. Can you guys talk about where you can be found, your handles and things like that?
So you can find me most often on Twitter. So if you guys would like to follow me, my Twitter handle is going to be CrystalXO, but it's like with 5 A's. So it's like it's spelled typically Crystal, CrystalXO. That's my Twitter. And also Tumblr, because I for Prince, Tumblr is probably where you'll find me also. And my Prince Tumblr is going to be graffiti-bridge, pretty simple.
Yeah, so I am literally the same person on every single social media platform there is. Stephanie Janae, all one word. Janae is Juhnay. If you're looking for Prince content, follow me on Tumblr there because that's where I do most of my printing. Twitter, is more like my normal brain, which is all over the place. So, yeah. And what other social media? Yeah, that's pretty much it. Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, if you feel like it.
Mm-hmm.
You go.
Okay. You can find me at Fisayo Adet. That's FISAYOADET at that's on Twitter. And then you can find me on Tumblr as well. Just Prince Things. That's just with I guess what do you call them? Hyphens in the middle of them. Hopefully that was clear.
For Prince stuff, I'm the-beautiful-1 on Tumblr. Because what would a Prince blog be without a number in place of a word? And then on Instagram, I'm Erica Strada, ErikaStrada. But that's like low Prince content, high dog pictures and selfies. So, here's your poison.
Okay, and then I'm darlingnisi. I'm that on Twitter as well as on Tumblr. And of course, I'll hop on occasionally on the Prince podcast, of which we are a subset. So, everyone, thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
So there it is, y'all, for you to see what's beyond you and me. Depends, my friends, primarily on how you view your role in eternity. If she could be Muse to the Pharaoh,